Welcome to Indicator 12 Support Early Childhood Transition, Part C to B. My name is Stacy Smith, and I'm the lead point of contact for Indicator 12, the Early Childhood Transition Indicator. You're welcome to follow along with these slides by accessing the bit.ly, and you can follow along and access any live links that are embedded. Today, we're going to look at a few specific areas. We're going to look at the indicator overview, the self-review summary report, considerations for your district team, scheduling your SRSR, and then some common challenges, hints, and tips. If you also need more information on the special education indicators overall, you can view the slides for the overview presentation at the bit.ly below on the screen. The session also will be recorded and you can access it on our website. For the 21-22 indicator review process, the manual is divided out by indicator. So within your special education profile, you have a live link to the Indicator 12 manual and also any documents that you will need to complete throughout the process. So let's take a closer look at the indicator. Indicator 12 is considered the Part C to B transition indicator, and it is measuring the percent of children referred by Part C early intervention who are found eligible for Part B preschool special education services and who have their IEPs developed and implemented by their third birthday. So in order to calculate this data, they look at the number of children that were referred from Part C and found eligible, and then they consider how many of those children have their IEP implemented by their third birthday. So in this example, you can see there were 18 children total, 17 had it implemented by their third birthday, which gives a compliance percentage of 94.44. This is a compliance indicator, and so the expectation is that you would meet this at 100% every year. So you might be wondering, what type of finding do you have? And so when you go into your profile, you will want to look at your information and at your data. If you believe you have a data reporting error, you take certain actions. And if you have a data reporting error, then the SST is not a required member to help out with this process, but we of course are always willing to help if you have questions. You may have a non-compliant timeline, or you may have both a data reporting error and a non-compliant timeline. So again, you're going to want to look at your profile to determine which type of a finding you have. If you believe you have a data reporting error verification issue, then that first process, that form is due February 9th, which is coming up pretty quickly. So again, you would want to follow the steps listed in the profile and submit that form by February 9th. Let's go ahead and look at the self-review summary report. The process of the self-review summary report is to take a look and determine what are the root causes and then what are some improvements that could be put in place. So first, we're going to talk about, if you have a data reporting error, what could possibly be some root causes. This really may be an issue of not having a process in place to review and confirm dates prior to entry into EMIS. So you might want to consider, is that the root cause? Or you might not have a procedure to identify errors in time for correction. So if those were the issues, you might want to look at some improvements, considering what could you put in place with EMIS, possibly a reporting sheet, to keep track of the process of the ETR to make sure that what is getting entered is correct. You could also develop and implement a process to utilize the general issues report on a scheduled timeline, so either monthly or quarterly, to make sure that you identify and correct errors promptly, and consider who would conduct this check and what would be your timeline for that process. When you're considering your timeline errors, some root causes could be a little bit different. You might have not had a contingency plan for something like the pandemic, and that definitely impacted timelines. Something else could be that maybe you did not have a way to administer assessments virtually, and so again, something to be considered. Something that's very common is that there's missing documentation of either the parent request or agreement to delay an evaluation completion, or to delay the start date when children are transitioning from C to B. And there may not be a system in place, or it's not being effectively implemented to track and monitor the dates of those open evaluations. So if we think of possible improvements, we might want to think about, is there a system or tool that could trigger the reminders of those dates? And again, who would monitor that? What plans do we have, thinking about virtual completion of assessments and protocols that would work well? And what other supports would you possibly need for completing evaluations remotely? And then, of course, you want to consider, what established practice could you put in place to ensure proper documentation of all actions during evaluation timeline? And you want to remember your interagency agreement. This is something that, as you are transitioning children from Part C to B, this process should be outlined, the policies and procedures within your interagency agreement within your county. So again, you want to make sure that you have the right information in there and that all parties are following what has been agreed to. So the next due date that you really want to be aware of is April 1st, 2022. This is the date that that self-review summary report is due, along with your improvement plan process. Something to be aware of this year is that within the improvement plan, it is specifically called out that you need to indicate when you will review and revise your interagency agreement. So again, that is a part of the improvement plan that is new from last year. The final date to be aware of is September 30th of 2022, because that is when the improvement plan activities are due. So anything that you outlined in your improvement plan, those actual activities and the evidence of those are due on September 30th. If you had a non-compliant timeline, this is also when you would submit the Indicator 12 transition tracking form and any student record items that are required. This chart, which is also in the manual, just gives a nice overview of what date and what is due and where you would upload that information. So now that we're talking about the SRSR, the improvement plan, who should you be considering for this process? We would suggest that obviously you would have your early childhood administrator. Sometimes that is the person in charge of special education within the district, but often it is someone who is specifically in charge of preschool special education. Then your preschool psychologist. Many times the preschool psychologist is the person working directly with early intervention to ensure this process is happening and looking at those timelines. So again, consider your preschool psychologist. Your EMIS coordinator would be another great person to include in this process to be sure that any checks and balances that need to be in place are there. And then if you did have a timeline issue, then you would want to include the state support team. So when you're thinking about scheduling that SRSR, I did go ahead and hold a few dates on my calendar so that if you do have some questions or you're ready to think about completing that SRSR, you could reach out to me. The dates I have on my calendar are on the screen, so please feel free to email me about if one of those dates would work for you. If those dates do not work, please just email me and we'll find a date that we can connect. So I wanted to share just a couple of things that we've learned throughout the years completing this process. So some common challenges, then hints and tips. So when you're completing the SRSR, be sure that you address each item if it's a concern or not a concern. And then make sure that if you said it is a concern, that you rank the level of priority for each item. When you're looking at the improvement plan, make sure that your goal is to address compliance at 100%, because that is the goal of this compliance indicator. And then you need to be sure that your activities align to the prioritized areas of concern. So there's alignment between whatever activity that you're indicating and what area on your improvement plan that matches. When we think of systemic correction, you want to, again, ensure that the information is accurate. And of course, make sure that all fields are completed. You do not want to leave any fields blank. This year, again, if there are missed timelines during the pandemic, The Office of Early Learning and School Readiness has extended flexibility in data reporting. You would still need to submit evidence that would support one of the existing EMIS noncompliance codes that are excusable reasons for IEPs that aren't implemented after a child's third birth date. However, what you want to consider is, would this IEP have been developed and implemented after the child's third birth date, even if the building closure had not occurred? Because again, they want to be sure that the reason this happened is one of the reasons, something that happened medically, or that the parent did not bring the child for the evaluation, things like that. And again, this is all outlined in the manual as well. The other resources that I wanted to share with you is that on ODE's website, on their preschool special education page, they have several items that are related to Indicator 12 to help with this process. So that live link at the top of the page takes you to the preschool special education page. And if you scroll down to Indicator 12, you'll find several documents and areas of support. The bottom link, the Indicator 12 Compliance Transition from Early Intervention to Preschool Special Education, is a 30-minute module on YouTube that walks through this process. And again, just is a nice training video if your staff needs more information on Indicator 12. If you still have some questions and answers, please feel free to join us on January 12th from 2:30 to 3. We are going to be having a Zoom access at that point. The passcode's indicator and the Zoom link is here. And again, that's January 12th from 2:30 to 3. If you're unable to make it or you still have questions, please feel free to reach out to me through my email address on the screen. Thank you for your time. And again, remember, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and I would be happy to help you. Thank you.